Hello and welcome to the part number 28 of the Node Editor tutorial series. My name is Pavel Křupala from blenderfreak.com, and in this part we are going to create a new window. We are starting the new example calculator. We will not write too much of the code, but we will mainly talk about the refactoring, what's our goal of doing this new example, and we will also go through the PyQt5 example called MDI, which is right here. So let's get started. During the last part we managed to create a Python repository from our code, and therefore we made it possible to everyone outside to use pip install and pass the URL, this one, to download our repository and our code and reuse it in his own or her own projects. But if we have a look at the code itself we have been writing all the time, we just move it basically into the subfolder called Node Editor, and we didn't have made any changes yet. Therefore, we are going to start with the refactoring of the code. And the main goals of the refactoring is, in the first place, to have a clean architecture, to make it able for other people to reuse the code in other projects or examples they want to use the code as a library. Therefore, when we are going through all of these files we created earlier, we want to make sure that the naming is consistent as much as possible. For example, we will have a look if the classes are named correctly, if the variables are named correctly. For example, if we are using the camel case notation, keep using that throughout all of the code. Some variables maybe will have names which will not be, let's say, precise, and we could name them better to make a little bit more sense for the new people who are going to read throughout the code to be able to understand the code as fast as possible, even though they haven't seen maybe these tutorials or something. Another principle we are going to focus on is dry. That stands up for don't repeat yourself. That means usually when you have a few lines of code or some logic you want to replicate somewhere or call it from somewhere else, it's always better to have one function in one single place where the logic and the code is stored, other than just Ctrl+C and Ctrl+V copy paste the code all over the place, because sooner or later you are probably going to change the code and move it somewhere else and maybe change what it's doing actually, and then the biggest issue will arise, and that's to remember where are all the places in the code which are doing the same thing, which I didn't change yet. And this is one of the most common source of bug creating as it can be. So we will try to avoid repeating our code. The next principle we will try to follow is KISS. That means keep it simple stupid. That means don't write unnecessary code. Write only the most simple basic implementation which is clean, readable, fast, and as easy as possible to understand for other people who are reading the code or will be reading the code in the future. Most of the time it will be you who will be writing your own code after yourself, and you need to figure that out 1 year later what you have been actually writing. So therefore try to make it simple as possible to read. Also it means the less code you write, the less bugs you will have. And because we are going to have a look at almost every file here we have written and check it out, we will definitely need to fix some bugs which we will find in the future. For some time I was thinking about what should the next example be, and I was not excited about the idea of creating just another window like this one, to have one single node editor just with some file menu, open, save, edit, and that's basically everything you can do. Resize this and that's it. And I don't like the default skin also. I decided to create a calculator to have something which is really fast to accomplish or to program. So first off, I went to GitHub, to the official PyQt5 repository, and I strongly suggest you to do the same. Have a look at the documentation in the support section and everything, and especially here is an awesome subfolder called examples. Here is a whole bunch of examples of how to use Qt5, especially Python Qt5. And here in the main windows there is MDI application, which stands for multi-document interface. I already downloaded the code and I just temporarily put it here into the examples menu, and I've already run code itself. This is how the example looks like. It's got some menu. I do like the idea of having save or save as disabled, and cut copy paste is disabled also because no other window is open here. We can click create new like this one, and now here we have a document. We can type anything inside there. It marks that this one is being changed. Now you can see we can paste, but we can't copy or cut because nothing is selected, and now it's possible. We can also create multiple documents and switch between them. We can drag them around, and we can also minimize the windows, for example like this. And here in the window menu, here is the list of documents, and we can, for example, tile the windows. We can see both of them together. So I thought it would be kind of nice to have the possibility to create such a window, such application with multiple graphs opened, because one of the main ideas when I was starting with the node editor was to create a graph material editor for the shader, so I don't have to write them all the time over and over again. And I thought it would be kind of nice to be able to see, for example, vertex shader in one graph and fragment shader in the second graph, and use the application like this, for example. I will close up the window and we will quickly look at the files in the repository. And here is _rc, which stands for resources. This is a compiled version of images or icons which are used in this application. Here is the meta file for it. So it describes, it contains image, copy, cut, new, open, paste, and etc. But we can have a look here how the example is basically written, and we can have some kind of inspiration what we want to achieve with our code. So the usual stuff here is the important import MDI_RC. And if we collapse the code here, you can see we got the main function. Here is a queue application creating the main window and then showing it up. Here is the main window. We are creating a widget called MDI area. We are adjusting the view mode, and I believe this is the line I've added on my own tabbed view. By default it's not tabbed, But anyways, here is a function, create actions, create menus, create toolbars, create status bar, and update menus, read the settings, which is kind of nice. Here is an example of how to use queue settings to store the main window position and size. And also we can write the settings, or restore and read and write the settings. When we basically create the window and I resize it and move it somewhere else and I close the application, next time when I will open it up, it will restore the position and the size of the window itself. I do like this code very much, and we will definitely use something of it. Here is a toolbar. That was the bar with the icons. It's simply created just by .add action. They do have actions stored in the member variables in the class. Here they are creating menus, which is kind of interesting. You got predefined actions and you are adding action to the menu itself. So maybe we can reuse this architecture also, because it makes a little bit more sense. Our basic example was using the file and the edit menu, and we can extend in the new example the menu with window and help and reuse the code we have written already. Here is the action creating, so you can queue action, and here you can pass icon. Here is the shortcut, the title, the label, self, status tip, and triggered, and here we can connect the callback. Here is an example how to make an action enabled or disabled. You can just call the action name, the value, the property containing the action, and call set enabled true or false to make it disabled or enabled in the menu. And then the functions here are create MDI child. Here is a MDI child, and then MDI area adding sub window. Okay, then there is a bunch of other functions called active MDI child, which I believe this one is returning the currently active window, and if there is one, it's going to return the widget itself. Here is a finding of the child according to the obviously a file name. So therefore, if you are trying to open a file which is already opened, it will make sure that the window or the tab, actual tab, is being selected instead of opening the new one with the same file. That's kind of handy. And here is set active sub window. So we can go ahead. I think it was up here. Here is about, paste, copy, just forwarding these operations into the active MDI child class. Here is opening dialog, asking if the file is existing. If it is, it's going to set up the new active window. If the opening file is not found or is not opened yet, then we are going to create a new MDI child and load the file up. And look at that, here's some handy thing which I didn't know before. We can call the status bar and show up the message, and we can pass obviously a timeout for how long it will be visible until it disappears. We can use that. Close event, that's the basic stuff, I guess. So that should be the main window. And the child, we can have a look. Interesting. The first interesting thing is that MDI child is actually extending the queue text widget. So therefore we should be probably able to extend the node editor widget which we were using. Then setting some attributes. Here are the functions for new file. Load up the file, save the file, is untitled current file. So it looks like that the MDI child, basically the widget itself, is containing the logic for the file name. Save as current file. Yeah, it is. It also returns the friendly name for the current file. Also has a close event, and the maybe save logic is here. Okay, and here is document was modified. I guess we are using just a property called has been modified, and it's not a function. And usually in Qt5 there is a function called isModified, so this is one of the cases we are probably going to rename. Here is setting current file and strip name, and that's everything. That's everything what needs to be done to have multiple document application itself. Okay, so I guess we can start coding our own example. So let's go ahead and create a new directory and call it example calculator. And I'm going to open our code which we were using here, and I will copy everything from main.py and create new Python file called main and add it to the repository. And let's have a look here. Here is a node editor window, which is kind of nice, but we want to have our new class for the window itself, and I will call it calc_window. And I made a typo. For now, just create a new class called calculator window q main window. We need from pyqt5.qt_GUI, import everything, and we can copy this line and import everything from the Qt widgets also. Then I'm going to create a new function called init, pass in parent. By default it's gonna be none. Call self init UI. Let's go to the main function. Here we are going to use this one. Instead of from node editor window, we are going to go into the examples example calculator window, and we are going to import the calculator window. Let's go ahead here and add a new configuration, which I already did. So I will show you how it looks like. We are just going to do plus, select Python, rename it to whatever you want, and in the script path you do want to make sure that you are pointing to the examples, example calculator main.py, and our working directory is gonna be this one. And here is the content routes added to the Python path and also the source route. So therefore that means now when I select calculator and press play, I should be able to see the calculator window. I should probably say window.show. Let's try it again. No, it's not going to happen because I forgot one line, super._init, and we can pass parent. Let's try play, and we got a new, completely new window for the new example. Now we can basically switch to the node editor, press play, and we got up and running our old example with the broken QSS styles. Or we can use the calculator and press play, and that's gonna be our next one. And this looks like a good place to end up this part, because I do want to avoid these videos to be too long, as few of the last parts were quite longish, I guess. But if you made through all of them, congratulations, good job, and especially when you were not just watching the videos, but you were writing the code on your own, because that's the way how you can get most of the tutorials for you to become a little bit better programmer in Python and using Qt5, and it also applies to other languages. But anyways, I guess I'm going to commit in the end this example copied out from the PyQt5 repository. For the few next tutorials it will be available in the differences between the commits, but later I will definitely delete this example to be outside of the repository. Of course, I suggest you strongly go ahead and have a look at the PyQt5, especially in the examples. The link will be in the description. As usual, all of the links are always in the description. And hopefully I went through the MDI example good enough for you to understand what it's actually doing. If I missed something or something is unclear, please don't hesitate, write a comment in below the video, and I will be glad to answer or explain everything I missed out from this example. So that's gonna be everything for this part. I thank you for watching and see you at the next part.